I just finished. This is the latest uh, edition, of course, of my tarot books and decks. You know, the thing was, I'm continually working on tarot decks, and I'm studying. When I first started, the tarot came to me in a dream, and so I wasn't. It wasn't like I even chose the tarot; it sort of chose me. Came to me in a dream, and I was told I would have a. In fact, I was told I would have an inheritance coming from England, and it was a strange dream because I was walking through a room and a telephone rang in the dream, and this is back in the 1980s, and back then, if the telephone rang, you used to actually pick it up. So I picked it up, and this dream operator came on, and she said that she had a person-person phone call from Robert Place from England, and would I take it? And I said, oh, well, sure, but I'm thinking like, how come people can, call you and interrupt your dream? This seems really odd. So anyway, then a dream operator got on from England, and she said that I had an inheritance coming from an ancestor in England. So I said, I wanted to know what it was. And she says, well, you have to agree to accept it. And it's very powerful, but there's some karmic debt that you'll inherit with it because the ancestor misused it somehow. Okay, so I didn't even think about that. I just sort of says, okay, sure, I'll do that. And she said, well, I said, so what is it? He says, well, it comes in a box from England and you'll know it when you see it. So I woke up in the morning and it was so vivid. I expected the box to be at the foot of the bed. I mean, that's how vivid this dream was. And my wife was looking at me like, why are you looking at this, staring at the foot of the bed? And I told her all about the dream. So, but these strange things started happening within a day or so. My friend Scott came over, and a friend of his had just sent him the Waite Smith deck, the famous, deck designed by Pamela Colman Smith and was first published in England, of course. And in the dream lawyer had told me that the only thing she told me about the name, she says, well, it's called the key. And I had known about the Waite Smith deck when I was in college because my girlfriend back then used to do the cards, but I really hadn't been that involved, and I've been involved in other esoteric studies in my art. But anyway, so when Scott walked through the door, he was to my left, and I'm sitting at the table, and my head sort of turned involuntarily, and I focused on the deck, and I realized, because the dream lawyer had told me that I'd know it when I see it, and I was like, oh, that's it, right? It's originally published in England. The trumps are called keys. The book is called The Key to the Tarot. Okay, so we're looking at it, and I'm telling Scott, wow, I had this whole dream about this deck. I have to get one of these. So then the next day or so, my friend Ed came over, and he had a Tarot Marseille. And he said, he was an astrologer and he's very intuitive. And he said, I had this deck and I don't use it. And I had this strong idea that you're supposed to have it. So he gave me the Tarot Marseille. And I said, well, this is really great. I have the Tarot Marseille now. And then I decided I had to go buy the Waite Smith deck. So, but of course, I was living in New Jersey and there was no place to go buy the deck there. So I had to go into New York City and buy the deck. And I had the two decks and started working with them and trying to learn about them. And, and this led to numerous synchronistic events, which eventually led me to realize that, that the tarot trumps really, coincided with the great work of alchemy, the magnum opus. And I don't think they intentionally supposed to be alchemical. They're not an alchemical text, but the thing is that they're hermetic. I mean, they were, as I delved into the real history of the tarot, I found that the tarot was developed in Renaissance Italy in the 1400s, and this was a time of when alchemy was flourishing, and Hermeticism, was influencing most of the artists at that time. And of course, the tarot was created by artists. It was a deck of images with this fifth suit attitude. Like they already had the four suit decks that looked like the minor suits in the tarot with swords and stabs and coins and cups. But they added this fifth suit with these strange characters, and basically at first they called it the Triumphi, which is a name of a parade, and basically it was an illustration of these type of parades they used to have, these triumphal parades where every character trumps the one that came before, so it creates a natural hierarchy of images. and they in different artists would reinterpret it in different ways. But there was all this like a lot of occultists or like people interested in tarot were saying, "Oh, who invented this tarot? It must have been Kabbalists or some a bunch of magicians in Fez, Morocco did it, or like ancient Jewish Kabbalists, or was invented in ancient Egypt." There were all these theories about it, but really it was created in Renaissance Italy by artists, and the artists were influenced by Hermeticism, which did come from ancient Egypt, but the cards themselves didn't come from ancient Egypt. They were just influenced by this ancient Egyptian philosophy, and that's the same philosophy that underlines alchemy. And alchemy came from that mixture of Greek classical culture and Egyptian mysticism. So so it was easy to see how the trumps, the same story that's the great work of alchemy, the magnum opus, was in the trumps. So that led me to create the alchemical tarot, and and uh, and through a lot of synchronicity, again, I immediately got published by Thorson's in London. I teamed up with Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who was a well-known New Age author, and she already had connections with the editor in chief at Thorson. So I got a real phone call from England, and they said they wanted to publish my alchemical tarot, and then it became world famous. And then since then I've created, like, I don't know, 22 different decks, and I'm basing most of my interpretations on the alchemical tarot and what I came up with, and how how even with the pip cards and the royal cards, how I looked at them alchemically, and how I would interpret them based on their suit symbolism and how it relates to the four elements, and then the number symbolisms of the individual cards, or the royal figures on the royal cards. So, but now, I've been doing this for so many years and coming up with all these different decks. Then I started to think about some historic, I wanted to recreate some other historic decks. So one time, I was looking at one of the earliest decks was the ever mentioned was this. It's just a literary mention of this deck that was created by Marziano for the Duke of Milan, and it's the oldest reference to a deck with trumps added, but the trumps aren't at all the allegory we think. They were like 16 classical gods. So I recreated that deck based on his instructions. But this is a long way from the later theories of the occultists. And then I was reading Court de Gébelin, who's like the source for most occult theories, and his Monde primitif was the first occult mention of the tarot in 1781. But see, the weird thing is, it was this encyclopedia that came out in 9 volumes, and all the articles are written by the Court de Gébelin. And but this one, on page 365 in the 8th volume, he has this article on the tarot, and he theorizes that it came from ancient Egypt, which is where that theory came from. So, but then he has an article after it by this other friend of his, the Comte de Mellet, which just means the Count of Mellet. And I mean, I have trouble pronouncing his full name. His full name is Louis-Raphaël-Lucrèce de Fayolle, Comte de Mellet, something like I'm totally mispronouncing it. So, but the thing is, we're not really sure how well the two men knew each other. But this is the only other person he had read an essay in this whole encyclopedia. And in the Comte de Mellet, his essay on the tarot follows Court de Gébelin's essay, and it's more complete. And I noticed that. See, when I first got involved in tarot, I want to know who created these cards, what were they thinking, and then I realized it was Renaissance artists, and then and the more I delved into the real history, and we could narrow it down to the 1400s in Renaissance Italy, and that we could see that these artists were influenced by Hermeticism, and how they would look at the tarot cards, like the trump cards, as having a 3-part story. You can actually see that in the types of cards that are in the 3 different parts. In fact, there's 21 trumps. We always talk about 22, but the Fool's not really a trump. The Fool's really a wild card that's unnumbered. And so there's 21 trumps, which is 3 times 7, and 3 and 7 are both important numbers in Hermeticism, because 3 is like, it's the 3 parts of relates to the 3 parts of the soul: body, mind, and spirit. Is the way most New Age people would talk about it. But we'll be looking at the work of like Plato and the Neoplatonists. We see that it's like, there's 3 souls for these different parts of the soul: of the body, the soul of the will or the mind, and the the soul of the body would be called the soul of appetite, and then the soul of will, which would be the soul of the mind and the spirit. And then there's these the logos, the soul of the intelligence, the spirit. So that's so in New Age circles that becomes body, mind, and spirit. But that kind of thing can be traced all the way back to ancient Egypt, where there was three aspects of the soul: the Ka, the Ba, and the Ak, which were the Ka was the soul of the body, the Ba was the soul of the mind, and the Ak was the part that could ascend to the gods. So we see that number 3 is really important. And of course, this number 7 is really important because in the ancient world, they believed there were 7 planets because with the naked eye you can only see 7. If you look out at the night sky, you can see that there's 7 bright bodies that wander through the sky against the background of the fixed stars. They don't, they move not in sync with the stars, but against the stars. Sometimes they go backwards and forwards, like Mercury will go retrograde and then it'll go forward. And of course, when you look at the sky at night from the Earth, it looks like the Earth is in the center of this whole big circle of things moving around. So originally, a lot of people talk about how they think the Earth was flat, but that's not true. The ancient Greeks knew that the Earth was round. All through the Middle Ages, we see images of the Earth as being round. But the thing was, they thought the Earth was in the center of the cosmos because intuitively that's how it looks with the naked eye. And so the planets included the sun and moon, as well as Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So there were seven bodies, and then they were looked at by their speed. The ancient astronomers made a hierarchy of them, with the moon on the bottom and Saturn at the top, based on how fast or slow they went around the Earth. So the sun would be right in the middle. The moon, being the fastest, would be on the bottom, and Saturn, being the slowest, would be on the top. Like the moon goes around every month. The sun seems to go around once a year, and Saturn goes around every 22 years, and then everybody else is in between somewhere. So they were looked at like the ancient Pythagoreans thought that, okay, well, maybe there's these crystal spheres around the Earth, and that the planets are each on its own crystal sphere, and there's sort of a hierarchy as we go up, and it's like a ladder leading up to the heavens. So then the fixed stars would be the zodiac, would be where the zodiac is, which the constellations, and they would be looked at as doorways into the heavens. So the ancients believed that as we died, our spirit would climb up this ladder, and each of these planets was named after a god, and then we would could ascend to heaven, but then we'd be reincarnate and we come back down through this ladder. And then at each planet, we were given certain qualities by each of these gods. And then as we got to the sublunar realm, which is Earth, the soul was encased in a physical body of the 4 elements. And then we'd have all these qualities, and that's what an astrology chart was supposed to be mapping. Is like how the gods, created our personalities as we descended. So you see how like the number 7 and the number 3 are really important in this kind of hermetic philosophy. And also in alchemy, the 7 planets were related to 7 metals the same way, and the 7 metals were considered the metals of the gods. In fact, they felt that all metal was one thing. And that depending on how many impurities in the metal, it became denser. So the densest one was lead, where the most pure was gold. So there was a hierarchy from lead to gold, and that's why they say, oh, the alchemists were trying to change lead into gold, but really what they were trying to do was to create the philosopher's stone. And the philosopher's stone, it was considered a substance that's not a substance. It's not material yet. It's in all material. It's created out of the soul of the world, the anima mundi. And so they were trying to capture this soul, and when they did, it was become this magic elixir that could change anything to its higher self. So therefore, it could change lead into gold, but it wouldn't just be lead would just go to gold. It would go through this whole hierarchy of lead to tin, to iron, to copper, to silver, to mercury, to silver, to gold. So like you see that, so that ladder of planets was then became part of the magnum opus. You see how they coincide in some ways. So what we have with the tarot cards, we have this 3-part story, which each with 7 steps, and like the first part like equates to the soul of appetite or the body, and we see that that's ruled by Cupid, the god of what we call lust and bodily desires. And then the charioteer is like breaking away from that, and he's going into the soul of will, which is the hero's, the soul of the warrior, the hero who faces the hardships of life, and that's what you see in the second part, because you see he's got to face, the hermit, which is old age. He faces hanged man, which is suffering. He faces death, and the devil comes at the end, right? And the devil's like tempts him as we come into the soul of reason, the higher aspect. First we have to get through the devil, and then we keep coming up to various images of higher and higher radiance and light. Like, there's the lightning breaks through, and then there's the star, and then the moon, and then the sun, and then the last judgment, which is like everyone's called up to the light of heaven. And then you have the world card, which isn't the world, but in itself, but the world sanctified. It's the anima mundi. In fact, that's how when I first was looking at an alchemical image back in the 1980s of the alchemical of the philosopher's stone. Remember I told you stone's not really a substance, so they can't really show you a picture of stone. What they show is they have to make these sort of symbolic pictures because it's made out of pure anima mundi. So they make these sort of mandalas where there's something that symbolizes the anima mundi. It could be Christ, or it could be a beautiful woman, or a heart, or something in the center of what we call a quincunx, where that center thing is the most important. And then in the 4 corners are images that relate to the 4-fold world of the 4 elements, the 4 seasons, and the 4 directions. And so the center is the quinta essentia, or the sacred center. And see, that was what the world card shows. And that's what tipped me off originally, because when I saw how the world card and the symbols for the philosopher's stone coincided, that's how I could create the alchemical tarot. But now the thing was, okay, after doing this for so many years and then keep reiterating this story in different ways and with different theories, like I did one based on Buddha, I even did one based on vampires, But the thing is, when I'm looking at the Comte de Mellet's idea, and for an occultist, he wasn't so far off from the Renaissance idea, because he was looking at the 3 parts of the story and seeing how it related to the 3 the three ages of creation. Like, so he looked at the trumps from the opposite end. Like, he looked at the world as the goddess of time in the beginning, and how this represented the golden age when people lived with the gods and when everything was wonderful. And now the second group of 7 now is the falling from that, in what we call the age of silver, or the Greeks called the age of silver. And there's a falling out from this, and death is created. And then that leads to the age of iron, copper, and iron, which you see. There's actually 4 ages, but he combines copper and iron into one thing, and that's the last 7, where people fall into, like, they need kings and queens to tell them what to do, and they fall into warfare, and that's why it starts with the chariot, So and then at the end he throws in the fool, who he calls the madman, who is well, actually he thought it was a mad woman, but he says that she's being chased by the tiger of her regrets. So to him that represents the fallen state of humanity. And so I said, well, this is interesting. So I want to see how he would do this and try to create the tarot deck that he saw. And it gave me a whole new perspective on it. But it wasn't so different from my views in the first place. Whereas a lot of occultists, their views are like not, don't coincide exactly. So from what I look at historically, where this seemed to be a bridge. So I decided I was going to create the deck, and because no one ever created the deck before, and this would be the first occult deck. So that's why I call it the first occult tarot. So I'm going to open this up to questions now. But the thing is, it doesn't always see the good. One of the good things about it, like when you do a reading, usually you have like a certain layout you're going to do, and you know that you're only going to have so many cards, right? But with this type of the way he does the layout, you don't know how many cards are going to come up. And it is possible to go through the whole deck and no cards come up, and then then what do you do? So then I had to, so I said, oh, I guess you start over, because but the thing is, you could end up with one pair of cards, or you could end up with 10 pairs of cards. I mean, but the interesting thing to me is that he's separating what what the cultists call the minor suits from the the major arcana, right? So so like so we're counting out the cards in the minor suits, and then that's telling, and then at the same time we're turning over one of the trump cards, the major arcana, and so then that whatever's turned over at the same time will then be placed under the suit card, and then it becomes a commentary on, like you're doing a reading with the suit cards, but then you're making a commentary with the major arcana, which is like a higher realm. Of course, he's a little confused, like, because in one way he's saying you put it under, and then another way he looks like he's putting it over. Like there is some confusion in his essay, like that. But I just tried to work it out. I could see that I would anticipate the problems and see what I would do to try and fix them. I would lay it out with those two rows with the minor arcana on the top and the major arcana on the bottom. And I would read the minor arcana as a story, the way I normally read it. So it didn't matter how many cards there. I usually put at least 3 cards, but with this technique, like I said, you could have all different. Uh, but the thing is, I look at the images on the cards and which way they're facing. Well, first of all, what's the card saying, and then is it facing away from or towards something, or looking at us, and then try to follow the story based on the way the images are going. Okay, and then I look at the trump cards underneath, and I say, okay, and what are they? And what's their story, and how are they commenting on the story above them? Because it's almost like here's your mundane story, what's happening, and here's the God's commentary. Hmm. Yes and no. I mean, the thing is, I consider myself an artist, and so, but the thing is, my art is married with a mystical theme. So I'm more of a mystic than anything. An artist mystic, I would say. And I'm not see because and of course I study occultism, and so I guess I could be an occultist because I study occultism. But I don't know, and I've practiced magic circles in the past and things like that. Um, but mostly what I do is work by myself, and I'm more interested in the mystical aspects of this whole study. See, well, people always throw around the Library of Alexandria, but the Library of Alexandria wasn't one building; it was a whole bunch of buildings, and the different buildings. There was like 3 different major fires that happened years and years apart, and and so I mean, there was, oh, we lost so much stuff, but then we still have a lot of the stuff, and I mean, basically, Hermeticism is based on the Hermetica, which are like 20 texts that were written in Alexandria, and they were copied in Arabic and Greek, and then they finally got translated into Latin in the 1400s, and that's what influenced the whole re-interest in Renaissance Italy of studying Hermeticism, which is, and I'm assuming that the Hermetic books were in the Library of Alexandria, but I think people just throw out the Library of Alexandria because it's such a, 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 a potent symbol, it's so dramatic. but the thing, what happened. See, the thing is, in the ancient world, people would like in ancient Egypt, they wrote on papyrus, right? Okay, now they were really jealous about the papyrus. They didn't, it was based, on these plants that grew in Egypt, and so they didn't sell papyrus out, all over the place. So other people had to come up with other ways to make books, So they started creating. That's why they started creating vellum and parchments, things like that, which are made out of animal skins. So books, the thing is, books are really expensive. Like in the Middle Ages, if like you think about it, you see those illuminated manuscripts like a Bible, and you realize that if it's made on vellum, that's calf skin. Okay, now one calf, you skin a calf, and you got 4 pages. So, so if you have this big book, you just skinned the herd of calves, and that's just starters, because then you had to stretch it and scrape it and whiten it, and then people spend years like hand lettering it and painting it. So one book was worth the same as a farm. It's not like so people could have lots of books, right? Okay, now with the papyrus, it was easier to make and they didn't tend to make books. They made scrolls. So scrolls. I mean, and the thing is, imagine like you're reading in a scroll and you're like way in the back here and you're reading this, and there's a reference to something you want to look at in the beginning, and you got to go roll it back, get back to the beginning. It's impractical in a lot of ways, right? Okay, and also, so people are always picturing the Library of Alexandria looking like a modern library with bookshelves and stuff, but it wasn't. It was really like clay walls with round holes in it and scrolls in there and stuff like that. And the parchment doesn't really like a lot of the books would fall apart. They didn't necessarily age well, so they had to be recopied. So we lost a lot of ancient books because nobody thought they were worth recopying, rather than they were burned. So now the thing is, we have a lot of books, all Plato's books. We had all Plato's works, right? Why? Because Plato was considered really, really important in the ancient world, so they kept copying his books, and right up into the Renaissance, right? Okay, and so the Hermeticism was like a little more, was copied. It was a little more obscure, and so that was a big discovery when people, when they saw all these Greek, books on Hermeticism, and then they could copy into Latin, and then it was like, oh, now we can rediscover this, because they didn't even have all of Plato. They just had a few things from Plato, and then so there was like a lot of translating going on in the 1400s in Italy, with Ficino and the Medicis, and they basically see what happened was there was a the Islamic Empire was threatening Byzantium, and so the Byzantines, from Constantinople, came to Italy, and you say, well, look, we're all Christians together, can you come and defend us? So they had this whole group of people that came there and to make their case, and they brought these Neoplatonic scholars that were into Plato. Like, Neoplatonism is a modern term. It really means looking at Plato's philosophy in a mystical way. So, and it's merged with Egyptian mysticism and stuff, and Hermeticism is related to that too. So they were bringing Hermeticism and all these different things, and the Italians were like, wow, look at all this great stuff. Let's start translating this into Latin so we could read it. So then Cosimo de Medici, his doctor was Ficino, and he had this really great son that was really bright. So Cosimo said, look, I'm going to take care of your son, and we're going to make sure he's educated, and he'll be a great translator. And I'm going to give him this house on the outskirts of Florence, and then and we'll call it the Academy, like Plato's Academy. So they had this new academy, and they're trying to recreate Platonism. So that's why. So this becomes the you see how I mean, it's sort of like, I mean, I'm assuming all this stuff was in the Library of Alexandria. We don't know. Then get back to your original question. But it's not just the Library of Alexandria. It's like there's so much interference in getting the information to us, but somehow this stuff got through, and what got through was considered really precious. Just like like they were digging up statues from ancient Rome, and and there's this weird thing, like they dug up a beautiful like I remember the story where they dug up a beautiful statue, uh, of Venus, like a nude Venus, and they weren't making female nudes too much in the Middle Age. Sometimes they make images of Eve, maybe, and then she'd be sort of embarrassed that she was naked, So the thing is, and then they had, wow, look at this beautiful nude, like, what a great thing. And so I forgot which city it was, but they set the nude up in the center of town, and they're like, oh wow, this is great, and this is I think it was the early 1400s, and and then there was a famine and the crops didn't work, and so they said, oh my God, we're worshiping idols. What are we doing? So they said, okay, well let's bury it back in the ground. No, but we won't bury it here. We'll bury it in we'll take it to Pisa and bury it there until they can have the famine. See, because they're good Christians, and they thought they passed the curse on to somebody else, So, but that's the kind of thinking that was happening in the 1300s and the 1400s, but then other artists like Ficino came along, and then he was translating Plato, he was translating the Hermetica, and he translated the Symposium by Plato, and then in the Symposium he's making this argument that there's Venus, that basically he's arguing that the Venus that is worldly is clothed, but the nude Venus is the pure Venus of the higher soul, and that's what Botticelli illustrated with the two, the painting of the Primavera, where it shows the worldly Venus, and then the birth of Venus, which shows the celestial Venus, it was nude and pure, and that's it. So the nude Venus is actually the higher spiritual Venus, and that's so sanctified the nude. So now they were allowed to make nudes because Ficino told them it was okay. It's really spiritually high, So, that's the influence of Tarot. So why are there nudes in the Tarot? Because it couldn't be there without Ficino. And so, all these things are married, and I assume that a lot of the stuff was in the Library of Alexandria, but we really don't know. Mine, of course. It's mostly like for a while I was using the Sevenfold Mystery all the time, and then I did the 6th edition of the Alchemy Tarot, so I use that most of the time now. But it just keeps changing, because I'm always using my deck. I'm influenced by antique decks. I have I really like the Minchiati. Like you see that when here, look, see right here on my desk. This is a Minchiati card from 1810. You see, it's protected in plastic, but I find it fascinating. See, this is a pip card. It's the 5 of Swords. Yet it's got imagery on it, because we act like the Pamela Colman Smith invented putting imagery on the pip cards. Yet here from in 1810, they were already put, and before in the 1700s, they're already putting imagery and this obviously means something, because they see that's a fox guarding the hen house. So that has definite meaning. It's not like it's just some image they put there. Or like this. Here's this one. Look. This is the 4 of Cups, and it shows a monkey looking in a mirror, which is a symbol of vanity. So there's definitely meaning. And I've been collecting a lot of Minchiati cards, really, especially from this particular series. But I have other Tarot Marseille cards, and I just recently bought a La Tête deck, which is the one that influenced Comte de Mellet. So. And also I'm giving a lecture. I lecture at the Metropolitan Museum on their card collection, and I'm giving another lecture in May again. I do it regularly. First of all, a lot of people talk about I always make Justice number 8, and where as strength is comes after the Wheel of Fortune. So the thing is, where like in the Waite Smith deck they switched it, but I always use the Marseille order, because I find the reason why they switched it in the Waite Smith deck is that it doesn't hold water for me, because it had to do with how they thought it coincided with the letters of the Hebrew alphabet and their Kabbalistic symbolism, which I think has nothing to do with anything. The people that created the tarot deck weren't thinking about that order. In fact, the thing is, the order we used from the Tarot Marseille wasn't even the original order, probably, because we found 3 different main orders in Italy, and then the cards came from Italy to France, and then they just picked up the order from Milan, so that became the French order in the Tarot Marseille, and then the Waite Smith deck switches them just for this quirky reason. So I find out. But as far as like Pamela Coleman Smith's interpretation of the pip cards. Most people follow this. So I tried to look at them originally and say, okay, I should give her the benefit of the doubt with this and try to go along with her. But then the thing is, I was interpreting the pips by, what element is this suit symbol? Like cups are water, swords are air, like that, right? Stabs are fire. Actually, I made all my stabs like torches to show their fire. So, and okay, what does that symbolize? Psychologically. So I would use Jung's the four functions of consciousness and see how that coincided with the elements. And then I'd use number symbolism, based on alchemical ideas of number symbolism, and coincide that with what the suit was about. And then I come up and then see if it did coincide with Pamela, and if it didn't, I'd change it. So sometimes they coincide, sometimes they don't. It's weird though, because on the Three of Swords, she did a lot of research herself, and so she based her Three of Swords on the Solobusca deck, which is from the 1400s, where it shows three swords going through a heart, and that's such a powerful image. And I wasn't sure if the Three of Swords, if that was, the way I would have interpreted, but it's like it had such a precedent going back to the 1400s, that image, and it's so powerful that I went with it. So it's like, so there's a give and take, in doing this. But I'm trying to create an alchemical deck, and then my interpretations for the pips are what I then followed for all my other decks, except now with the one from the Comte de Mellet, I'm trying to follow what he said, which is, and he was basing his ideas on regular playing card decks. Because the thing is that everybody thinks that the tarot was made for divination, but the tarot is just another deck created for a card game, and that all cards were used for divination. In fact, the regular four-suit playing card decks were more popular for divination all along than the tarot was. It's only recently that the tarot became popular. Ever since Etteilla's deck. And that was the late 1700s again. So the thing is, like for instance, in the late 1700s, not only were people using would use just regular playing cards to do divination, but they started making what we call oracle decks, where they would create an iconic image on the card and just have a little insert of the playing card, and so they did the different oracle decks like that, and of course the most famous is the Lenormand, the Petit Lenormand, which was created in Germany, and so that's and a lot of people in the United States didn't know much about that till recently. Well, yet the thing is, it's funny because as I researched it, then I bought an antique deck, Lenormand deck, that was actually published in New York in 1882, and it was like it had all the same images just like the German decks, but it was a real cheap version. It was just black and white, and had a little rectangle on the top where the insert playing card was supposed to be, but there was nothing there because they would print that separately. So I said, okay, well, so I scanned it and reproduced it so I could do it myself, and I put my own playing cards in there and I colored it, and and I call it the the New York Lenormand. So here in 1882 in the United States, they were printing Lenormand decks, and nobody even knew what a tarot deck in the United States back then. There were no tarot decks in the United States. So and yet we act like we've always had the tarot, and that's what everybody does divination with. But we've been using Lenormand decks and oracle decks. They were just created just for divination. Where the tarot, the modern tarots are created for divination, but originally they're created to play a card game. That's the ancestor of bridge. It's complicated. When you look into history, it's complicated. Not straightforward. We see that constantly, like with the four suit decks going back. It's any literary references we get going back to like the 1500s. We see they are trying to relate the decks to different aspects of society. Four is a number that we always associate with the physical world. That's why the alchemists had four elements. That's why there's four seasons and four directions. Okay, so four is the physical world, and like so there are all these ways of interpreting that, like they would like often they would say, oh, there were four great civilizations, or there's And you see that like in Albert Dürer creates pictures like that where he's talking about uh, Greece and Egypt and Rome and Germany as the four great civilizations, or sometimes they, more modern times they'd start, talking about the four corners of the earth, and then we have America and China and Africa and Europe, saying like would represent the, north, south, east, and west, or I mean, well, it'd be like west, east, and you I just said. So anyway, so there's a lot. So they all, everyone, they're not always consistent, but everybody tries to look at it that way. In fact, in my book, I have charts and charts of like, when we could look at the literary references, how people equated the four suits to all these four different, four different aspects of the material world. And that's how and so with that, with the four elements, like say traditionally, uh, people associated the four elements with the four humors, which are basically liquid elements in the body that related to the elements. Like it's like black bile, yellow bile, phlegm, and blood. And this and depending on, this is what medicine was based on, and what kind of balance of humors you have. Like if you're in good humor, it means your humors are balanced, right? Or like, it's part of the English language now. Like we say somebody's melancholy, you think, oh, they're sad because that got too much black bile, you know. Right. So that's how they looked at the cards. Like they would think of the suits as relating these different humors, and then there would be different personality types. So basically but like Jung, looked into this, in the psychology, and he tried to see, if because this is like a psychological typing system, right? And he wanted to work with that. But he didn't find it was realistic from his observation. So that's why he developed the four functions of consciousness, which are thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. And so I work with that. I say, well, okay, well, if Jung says what, the humors weren't too realistic, and his is more realistic, I wanted to work with his. So that's what I relate to the four suits. The Solobusca is just, it's, basically they didn't follow any other series of images for the trumps other, than they have a fool. And then and the thing is, but they're all just mythological heroes or historic heroes, and so they just say, oh, we're going to make us, but which was a thing they used to do in the Middle Ages all the time. They'd have the worthies, which are the four heroes, and the four heroes were supposed to represent the four societies, so there'd be one from the Bible and one, who's from Europe, and ancient Greece. So like, again, it's just a way of organizing the world. And then um, and we have other decks too, like when the tarot came to Austria and Germany originally, they called it the tarot, because originally the name wasn't tarot. I mean, we get tarot or tarot from French, right? So but it's really tarocchi, or tarocchi in yeah, tarocchi would be better in Italian. My Italian friends always correct me, so, so but when it came to Germany originally, they called it tarot. And they started creating these decks where they had a fool and 21 trumps, but they let the artists do whatever they want. I mean, there's ones, where there's all, there's different animals on them, or there's like this famous one with like pictures of Chinese people, and or like they have different buildings on. They just, whatever series they wanted, they just broke with the series. And I always look at the Solobuscas like that, like it's just broke with the tradition, and the artist did what they wanted to do, and it was making use of this list of heroes that seems sort of obscure to us because we're removed being removed from the time. We're not, some of the heroes aren't so obvious to us. I was at a conference in Charleston years ago where there were esoteric scholars from all different universities, and then somebody was giving a lecture on the Solobusca and talking about the whole occult, theories behind it, and and the whole thing. But I didn't find any evidence for anything she was saying. It just seemed like, oh, okay, so you're projecting on the images, but what how do you back this up? Whereas I always try to have I'm trying to be careful and like base what I'm base my projections on some facts. See, like I told you, when I first the tarot came to me, it came to me like I was looking at this image of the Philosopher's Stone, and I thought, gee, that's symbolically interchangeable with the World card. And then I thought, well, if the Philosopher's Stone is the object of the great work, and it's the final, and it coincides with the final trump, then could the trumps be the alchemical great work? And I said that, and it was like, it just, it's an epiphany, and like all these images started coming, like this portal in my mind opened, and I saw all the tarot images and the alchemical images coinciding, and then I picked up Jung's psychology and alchemy, and I'm making notes in the margins next to all the pictures, like what tarot cards they relate to, and it was like happening in an instant. It wasn't like, so I can't, so it happened to me. See what I mean? So like the thing that people are experiencing from the tarot, I experienced originally. It's in the images do that. Like the alchemical images are designed to open up portals in your mind and change your psyche. So they changed my psyche, and then I tried to capture them in a tarot deck. And so when people look at the tarot deck and say, wow, this changes my psyche, but it's not me doing it. It's like I'm just putting it in there, like from what happened to me. They can make a tarot deck on any theme they want. Like, originally Oswaldo Menegazi was making, like, he made the smokers tarot, and like, smoking implements, and it was just, he's just having fun as an artist, so like, I mean, that's okay with me. But it's not the same thing as what I'm doing. The thing, the tarot of Marseille captures, it captures the mystical story better, like having a series of heroes doesn't capture the mystical story. So the Tarot Marseille captures it, and it seems to, like, if you it's interesting because when I read Blanquera, which is the first romance you know novel, like Raymond Lully, when he wrote this, he basically invented the novels, and it was coming out of this romance tradition, which, see, like in the late Middle Ages, the romance literature was based on like troubadour poetry and things like this, which really came from, like, influenced by Sufis and Kabbalists and things like that, and it had a definite mystical intent. And then so when we read Blanquer, you can see how the images in the story, like in a way, they coincide really nicely with the Tarot of Marseille. Like there's a lot of same images, like there's Raymond the Fool, there's the Pope, and there's all these characters, the same kind of characters, and then even in like a lot of medieval plays and stuff, we find some similar characters, and people would play with these characters, and they tend to have uh, uh, you know, the stories have significance, but they morph over time. It's like the story of King Arthur and the Grail, right? Okay, so that seems to be coincide a lot with the Trumps. But the thing is, it's not one story. Just like now, like everybody's making different movies about King Arthur and the Grail, and they're changing it. But that's what they were doing originally. Like because if you read all the literature, there's like every author's reinventing it and making the story different. But there's a certain coherence to the story. And see, that's when I did the vampire tour, that's what I was seeing, is that the story of Dracula was really based on this Grail legend. That Bram Stoker's Dracula was really very influenced by the Grail legend, and so that's when seeing that, I say, oh, then I can make it like into a tarot deck and coincide it. Because people would say, like, when you did the Tarot of the Saints, you did the Buddha Tarot, and now you do the Vampire Tarot. What happened to you? So But that's what I'm just looking at, how the stories coincide, the mythology works. You notice that in the Comte de Mellet, when he's saying this comes from ancient Egypt, but then he was describing his idea, he's talking about classical mythology a lot. And he's not really distinguishing classical mythology from ancient Egypt. To him, it's all one thing. And because you have to realize, like, this is before the Rosetta Stone was discovered, and there was no Egyptology. No one knew anything about Egyptian history. So the only thing he knew about it was from what the Greeks wrote about it. So it's merged. See, and I think so. It's hard from a modern perspective, because then people will say, oh, well, he knows nothing about Egypt. Well, how could he know anything about Egypt? There was no study of Egypt. They couldn't read the hieroglyphs, like you're saying. And then like other people, people would make up stuff about the hieroglyphs. Well, it's St. Martin's Press published it, and I wanted to get the rights back, but they're holding on to it, and I didn't. I think it's out of print now, and usually in my contracts, I have a clause that says if it goes out of print that I could get the rights back. But I did this one through an agent, and they didn't put that clause in there. So, so anyway, because there was a French company that wanted to republish it, and I couldn't. St. Martin's just don't even, they're not even talking to me. So, like, I don't know why they're holding on to the deck. They don't want to. They're not printing it, so I don't know why they want to hold on to it, but they are, and they have. And I sold them the rights, so that's it. But unless I could create another Vampire Tarot, a new one. Yeah, if you follow me on Facebook, I've been posting the pictures as I do them. So all the trumps are designed already, and I'm starting to work on the suit of swords. It didn't look like that because he looked more like a powdered wig kind of guy, Yeah, and you know I was just thinking, because the thing is, when he's going it through the history, and he's going to the modern world. So his modern world was France, So I'm just making him look like the magicians of Bateleur, like in France, which is interesting because I was just in Paris a couple of months ago, and we were at the Eiffel Tower, and there was a guy, like a couple of guys really. They would put a blanket on the ground, and they do in a shell game, and like tricking people and taking their money. And I said, wow, that's the Bateleur, like that's the tarot card. It's right here, Yeah, and that's what he's looking at. It's like, oh, there's these tricksters that take your money and stuff, and it's like it shows the fallen state of humanity, because we're like, so he acts like he's a magician, and everybody thinks he's doing these tricks, but he's just it's just stage tricks. Take care.